Hey guys, it's Alec Torelli, and in this video we're going to talk about 3 ways to manage your bankroll to reduce variance, some strategies that I've used and that have worked well for me as well as my clients over the years. Stay right here. First off, if you guys are new here, welcome to the Conscious Poker YouTube and Conscious Poker in general, where our mission is to turn good players like you into great ones by providing the best, most simple to understand strategy and mindset content that exists. So thank you for being here. If you like that idea and that mission, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel because more awesome content is coming your way. And we believe that a big part of success in poker is not just your ability to be be better at playing poker, which is like the strategy, the GTO, the fundamentals, but also to be a better poker player, which is the mindset, the tilt control, the bankroll management, and playing your A game consistently. We believe that it's 50-50, and so much of the latter is neglected. And that's why I'm largely here creating this video, because this is really the accumulation of some of the best practices that I've used, as well as with clients in bankroll management over the years. Be sure to stick around to the end of this video, because I'm going to provide a lot of resources and additional content to help further you on your journey in poker, to help with bankroll management, reducing variance. Check out the link in the description, because there's more awesome content there as well. The first principle I'd like to share when it comes to bankroll management is first to only play with money that you can afford to lose in poker. And so part of it's been said, the most important skill a poker player can have, there's many most important skills, but definitely one of them, top 3 for sure, is bankroll management. And you can have this truth where there's a lot of worse players objectively in terms of talent that do a lot better. If your goal in poker is to make money long term, there could be inferior talented players, less talented players that make more money because they're able to manage their capital correctly. And this is a great life skill to practice as well. And I guess the principle that we like to impart here at Conscious Poker on others that have worked well for me and clients is to segregate your finances and really to think about poker like a business. And in doing that, you fund your business with discretionary money you can afford to lose. You're not mortgaging your house or maxing out your credit card, but you're saying, okay, I have my net worth, my liquid net worth, or whatever, let's just throw out a number, is whatever, 100 grand, cool. I'm gonna decide how much of that, based on my family situation, my life, my responsibilities, how aggressive I wanna be with my finances, my goals. I'm gonna decide how much of that liquid I wanna put into poker. I'm gonna open a separate bank account and fund that bank account with whatever, 25 grand of that 100, because that's the money I'm going to use for poker. And then I'm going to create a bankroll management system within that 25 grand that I'm going to divide between cash games and tournaments, figure out what stakes and games I'm going to play that are right for me, and set stop losses and all these structural things in place to allow me to succeed long term, because I run my poker like a business, because I'm thinking like a professional. Now, even if you don't aspire to be a professional or to quit your job and be a professional, which by the way, we don't recommend, even if you don't aspire to that, you probably want to have the success of a professional, right? So you might not aspire to be a full-time professional investor, but you want the returns that an investor has. So if you want the same results that a professional has, which is to win money at poker, probably why you're here, then treat poker like a business. So we help other people do that, and there's content at the end of this video. But one of the things we've built is our Academy program to help people do that, and it's really the blueprint to help people treat poker like a business. There's more information at the description below if that's something that interests you. But the principle to keep in mind is to only play with money that you can afford to lose, because then you're on a free roll. The second principle I'd like to share with you, since we're talking about how to better manage your bankroll and with respect to reducing variance, is to do what I call practical poker. And this is something that came out of a consult I had with a client, where he was sharing his situation with me, and that he would feel very frustrated when he did very well in the beginning of a trip that he took to play poker. And then at the end, he would have one session where he lost his money and he kind of unwound the trip, and he ended up leaving the trip a loser. And I said to him, well, what if you just didn't play that last session, or you sold half your action, or you played a lot smaller so you can still get the excitement and fun of playing poker, but you guaranteed that you left that trip a winner? How would that feel for you? And he tried that, and it really changed a lot of his mental perspective afterwards, because he always left trips a winner. When he started the trip a winner, he changed his strategy and then left the trip a winner, which then he took that momentum with him into future trips, into future poker playing sessions, and it just built upon each other and allowed him to win more. So it kind of compounded, right? Because that's the way that the mental game works, is when you're winning, you're in a winning mindset, you're playing better, then you win more in the future. And the same vicious cycle happens so that virtuous cycle happens when you're winning, but the vicious cycle happens when you're losing. So I developed this idea that I call practical poker, which is to basically, and professionals are going to hate me for this, but it's basically to throw out the idea of just saying, the only way the professional makes money is to play the most amount of hours possible and reach the long term. And I get that that's a good, prudent strategy if you're a professional and you're a robot and you don't succumb to emotions. But most people aren't professionals, most people aren't robots, and most people do succumb to emotions, and they play worse when they're losing. So there is a lot of power in booking a win and winning at a poker session, leaving the trip a winner. So I made a video on this called Practical Poker. I talk about these 3 principles a lot more in the video. It's at the link in the description. But there's 3 principles I want to share, 3 ideas I want to share about when to best do this strategy. The first is when you can leave the trip a winner, like we talked about. That's a great, empowering situation to know that my trip to Vegas that I take once a year for the World Series, I left that trip a winner. That's big, especially if you're sharing your poker life with someone and you're sharing it with your wife, your girlfriend, your family, and they say, how'd you do on that trip to Vegas? And you say, oh, I lost. How'd you do on that trip to Vegas? Oh, I won. Or I lost because I was up 3,000. I donked it all off the last session. If you just cut out that loss and you guarantee you leave a winner, how is that going to change the support of the people around you? How is that going to change your mental state going forward? How are you going to take that into your future sessions? So there's a lot more to think about than just your EV, because you're not a robot solving for GTO. You're a person living in the world where your poker journey is shared with the people around you. The second principle I'd like to impart when I think it's prudent to use this strategy is when you're on a downswing. So I remember this happened to me when I was in Macau. I had lost like 4 or 5 sessions, 3 sessions in a row, and 5 out of 6. So I was building that vicious cycle of momentum in the wrong direction on a downswing, and it was my birthday. I was like 25, I think it was like 2012, something like that. I could be getting the years or the ages wrong, but it's about that time. And I was in this great game, playing 1,000, 2,000 Hong Kong, and there's this guy who I remember one of the guys in the game made this amazing description, and he called it alligator blood. The guy just had alligator blood, and one of the things that you see often is this concept of saving face in the Chinese culture, and it's really, it's interesting, but in poker, it works against you because a lot of people want to save face and they don't want to quit the game because they're losing, because they have so much pride, and I love and respect that about the culture. But basically, this guy just didn't want to quit the game. It was clear that he didn't want to quit the game because he didn't want to admit that he lost. Which, if you're quitting while you're losing, then you're kind of like losing the battle, and that was like losing dignity or saving face. It's called. So he didn't want to quit. He had alligator blood. Unfortunately for him, the professionals at the table were waiting for him to. They weren't going to quit the game. So the game was built around this guy. The guy was not very good at poker. Nice way of putting it. An inferior cardsman he was. Inferior cardsman. And so he just kept bleeding off. And I was winning in the game. I was up a couple 100,000, which isn't a huge amount, but it's a big amount, but not for the game. But it was nearing midnight. I've been playing 8 or 9 hours, and it was my birthday. And I was like, you know what? If I sit here in this game and I lose this money back on my birthday after playing 9 hours when I'm kind of tired and I've lost 3 or 4 sessions in a row and 5 out of 6, that's going to put me in a mental place where I'm going to say I should have quit. Maybe that's right or wrong. Maybe it's not right if you're saying, maybe it's wrong if you're saying, well, I had my hourly rate and I pursue my hourly, but I knew that in that moment that's what I was feeling. That's what I was feeling. That was my truth. So I'm not apologizing for that. I'm aware of that. So people apologize for how they're feeling because they want to feel like a robot. They want to feel like, oh, a long-term professional GTO. I think it's more prudent to be aware of how you're feeling and listen to that. That just seems like such a more logical response because I understand that I'm human. I understand that I have emotion. I cry when I'm sad and I smile when I'm happy. So I'm aware that this is how I'm feeling, and I'm saying, shit, if I stay in this session, I know my EV's high. I'm in a 1K, 2K game. The game is amazing. This guy's a losing punter, and I should stay and play. But I was like, you know what? I should. Anytime I say the word should, I reflect because it means that I'm doing something that I know that is not my truth. So I said, okay, I'm going to quit this game. I got up. I remember I got looks from all the pros. I remember one guy after said, you can't quit this game. And I did it anyway. I quit. I booked a win. And that allowed me to then stop the downswing. Because the downswing was over. Because now I won. And I stopped the loss, and I went to sleep happy. I got a good night's sleep. I got up the next day. I was still on my schedule. I didn't interrupt my sleep pattern, and I got back into building momentum for that win. Now, did it all happen because I quit? I don't know, but it just works for me. And that's how I navigate my life to a large extent. And that really works for me in poker. So if this is something that resonates with you, I encourage you to try it. Don't apologize for being robotic or not being robotic. Be aware of who you are and listen. So the third idea to when to impart this strategy of practical poker is when you're up a significant amount, and because you're taking a shot in a game and the amount that you're up is significant to your bankroll. So let's go back to that guy who has a 25K bankroll. Let's say he's averaging playing 2-5 no limit. That's his game that he plays with 50 buy-ins, live poker, 2-5. That's probably fine. And he buys in 500, wins or loses 500 on a given day. Fine. One day he decides, you know what? I'm going to take a shot in a 5-10 game with a small part of my bankroll. That's fine. It's a reasonable strategy, and we encourage people to do that if they're being fiscally responsible. Take shots with a very small percentage of your bankroll, move down if you lose. Fine. So he decides, I'm going to take 5K on my bankroll and go play 5-10. Only when the game is amazing, only when I'm feeling amazing, only when I've done my routine and everything's feeling right, I'm going to play in the best game possible. He sits down in the 5-10 game, and he finds himself 6 hours later up $3,000, up $5,000. So he says to himself, I'm up $5,000 in this game. $5,000 is maybe not a lot of money for 5-10, but you know what? I've doubled my shot-taking bankroll. I've gone from having a shot-taking bankroll of $5,000 to a shot-taking bankroll of $8,000 or $10,000. Because now my bankroll went from 25K to 30K. And remember, I was using 5K to take shots. Now I have 10K to take shots. That puts me in a situation of power. Because now instead of taking a shot with 5 buy-ins, I'm taking a shot with 10 buy-ins. Think about what that could do to how I can play that game. How I could change my strategy in that game. How I can make plays that I couldn't afford to make before. How I don't have the pressure of having to move down if I lose. That's huge. So you book that win. You get out of the game that's profitable because you hedge. You take insurance, which is what people do all the time when they buy options in the stock market. What they do all the time when they have health insurance because they don't want to pay a $100,000 bill if they get sick, so they pay a couple $100,000 a month, whatever it is. You take insurance all the time in your life. You have home insurance. So if your house burns down, you get a check. Take insurance on your poker playing because it's being fiscally responsible. It's called practical poker. I encourage you to try it if you want to know how to implement that tactically into your game. The third and final principle I'd like to impart, and this is one thing we encourage our students to do in our Alex Academy program, where we help them build their bankroll from the ground up and implement a solid business plan to achieve their poker goals, is we encourage them to play more cash games. And the reason is because cash games have a lot lower variance than tournaments. So in cash games, you're going to win 60-70% of your sessions if you're a good or great player. In tournaments, you might win 10 to 15, 20% at the most if you're a great player. So that variance delta is huge. And in tournaments, you need a lot more buy-ins. You're going to be losing more often, which is taxing on your mental game. And it is very challenging to play full-time professionally, both mentally but also financially, to manage one's money correctly. Cash games allow for a little bit more stability in poker playing. And so it's a little bit more like running a business, where tournaments are more like investing in startups. So it's a little bit more like that sort of dynamic between the two formats. So there's a formula we use, which we encourage people to start out at. It's called the 80-20 formula, which basically 80% cash games, 20% in tournaments. And there's a blog post at the link in the description, two blog posts that will really help you with this to implement it practically in your game. The first is how to use a poker variance calculator. It shows you the variance involved and how to reduce it in cash games and tournaments. Both. There's a video and blog post on both of those things. And the second is how to manage your bankroll like a pro, which is the blueprint of the system we use in our Alex Academy program. There's a video and a blog in the description below on both of these things. So the short of it is to experiment with playing more cash games and use cash games as your main source of income, and then take shots in tournaments with small amounts of money. So similarly to how the guy in our previous example take shots in a higher stakes cash game with a small amount of his bankroll, you also want to further divide your bankroll, and you could do this physically by having a checking account and a savings account, for example, or 2 checking accounts, one for cash games, one for tournaments, and put, let's say, 20,000 of that 25,000 into cash games and 5,000 of it into tournaments. And then within that 20,000, you manage your cash game bankroll. Within that 5,000, you manage your tournament bankroll. And there's resources on how to do that in the description below. So these are the 3 principles we use in our Academy program to really help people figure out how to manage their bankroll in the best way possible and reduce their variance and ultimately build a sustainable business that can help them achieve their poker goals long term. So if you want more information on that, our Academy, the link in the description is below. You can apply to join. We have cohorts coming out multiple times throughout the year, and I'd love to help you on your poker journey as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment if you have questions or your thoughts. I'd greatly appreciate that. Thanks for your support. Give this a like, and you guys are awesome. Thanks for your time and attention. I'll see you in the next episode of Ask Alec.